Hi, this is Lana with Psychosomatic Alchemy, and today we're discussing reincarnation. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the notion of reincarnation in Buddhist and Hindu thought. But did you know that concept of reincarnation also exists in Jewish esoteric mysticism, as well as in unorthodox forms of Christianity? Well, let's unpack this topic a bit further and investigate implications of such teachings and how they may inform our respective spiritual paths in a practical way. So according to the Buddha, the consciousness is beginningless and endless, meaning there is no such thing as the first moment of mind. In fact, it's impossible because it would imply that something can suddenly appear out of nothing. It would necessarily posit a creator, that someone formed us from nothing. But there is no creator in Tibetan Buddhism. Scientifically, we know that this entire show started with the Big Bang. And of course, the Dalai Lama would agree, sure, absolutely, just not the first Big Bang. And may I add, likely not the last one either. According to the Buddha, we have always existed. Our consciousness has been recycled endlessly from one form to the next, eon after eon. Birth, life, death, rebirth, on and on. This is known as samsara, the cyclic existence in which we're trapped until we become enlightened and emancipated from this endless circle. Of course, this notion of us being recycled isn't so difficult to fathom, as it's consistent with the law of physics that states that energy cannot be either created nor destroyed. It can only move from one form to another. So are we not a form of energy? Now, of course, we could say that there is a first moment of mind in our current physical form, which happens when consciousness enters the fetus during conception, and it remains there until physical death. But where did that consciousness come from? And where is it going next? You see, like creates like. So physical phenomena come from the physical elements. Subtle things come from the subtle basis. So consciousness cannot be produced by the physical. Yes, they function together, but they're two distinctly different things, according to the Buddha. So where does mind come from? Well, from the previous moment of mind. You see, Lana that you see now in front of you comes from Lana from 5 minutes ago. And she comes from Lana from a few hours, days, months, years ago. And we can trace it all back to infancy. But where did this consciousness that animates this body come from before I was born? Well, the answer is again from its previous moment, which would be then my mind in the bardo. Bardo being the intermediate state that's happening between death and new rebirth. Before bardo, my mind came from my previous incarnation, and so on, endlessly going back. No beginning, no first moment. Always have been here in infinite forms. So what determines conditions of every incarnation according to Buddhism? Karma. Basically, whatever action we create and how we create it will produce results similar to the cause. Karma is a complex thing to explain fully and properly, but for now, let's take as hypothesis that whatever we think, do, and say creates a mental imprint, and that imprint becomes active and potent depending on our intention. So hurting someone on purpose in anger creates a very different imprint than hurting someone by accident and regretting it, or by hurting someone without even having any knowledge or intention whatsoever. If we're full of violent imprints when we die and our consciousness enters bardo, it gets drawn like a magnet to the new parents whose mental material is most similar to the active mental imprints in our consciousness, which are imprints we cultivated most in our life. So karma is like a momentum. That which we practiced or rehearsed our whole life becomes automatic behavior, and eventually we spontaneously embody those imprints and maybe repeat them even unconsciously. So someone super violent in life may very well be attracted to lion parents in the bardo. You see, because modus operandi of lions is equally violent in nature. I mean, we see lions as these beautiful, magnificent, royal creatures. But I mean, look at the screaming zebra they're ripping apart for dinner. Animal kingdom is extremely violent. So this could also explain, serial killers. Someone whose previous incarnation is that of a wild animal is now reborn as a human due to some virtuous karma ripening at death. But now they carry imprints of enjoying violently killing another being. In the West, we tend to think of karma as a system of reward or punishment, but this is actually mistaken. It's just simple cause and effect. If you put your hand in the fire, you will get burnt. Not because you're bad, but because fire is hot. It's the nature of fire to be hot. So getting burnt is a natural effect of shoving your hand in fire. So karma is a natural law too. No one is going around weighing your actions. We ourselves are doing that because only we know what's in our mind at any given time. The camera is always on. And who is the camera? It's not God or Jesus in Buddhism. It's you. So we can lie to others about why we do something. We can even lie to ourselves. But deep down, we know who we are. And by default, we interpret the world based upon that. So if we're cultivating kindness and morality, we will be compelled to see the world in a more forgiving and connected way. And we won't respond to injustice with violence. If we're cultivating anger and antagonism, we'll be forced to look through the same filter, and thus we're more likely to perceive the world in a more unfriendly light. So no one is rewarding us or punishing us. You see, our appearances are our own. They're simply such based on who we are. And we are who we are based upon how we conduct ourselves in this world and how we treat others. So in Tibetan Buddhist thought, if you want to be reborn in human realm versus animal realm, you practice morality, which is a type of behavior that's particular to the capacity of human beings alone. Animals are not rational, so they cannot practice morality. They simply go by instinct. But also, you see, human incarnation is the most desired one because it's the only opportunity where we can deprogram our mind from ignorance and compulsions that keep us trapped in this cyclic existence. So it's the only way to become free, according to Tibetan Buddhism. Now, in Judaism, there are various ideas about the afterlife, but the most common one is that at the end of time, there will be a resurrection of the dead. But esoteric Kabbalists of Jewish mysticism believe that souls can be reincarnated until such time of the resurrection, and they call this process gilgal or returning. The word gilgal also refers to the reincarnated soul itself. The Kabbalists believe that the soul is composed of 5 parts or levels, each having to be developed in stages. All living things have what's called nefesh, or life soul. So, for instance, babies are only born with nefesh, and then as a person grows, their soul might develop to the level of ruach, or spirit, which enables them to have a conscience and a moral compass, distinguishing right from wrong. Then a person that devotes themselves to spiritual practices can develop into the level of neshama. And this basically unlocks the capacity to comprehend divine realities intellectually. And if such a person remains devoted, then their soul might progress to the level of hiya, meaning they can participate in a divine life. And finally, the highest level of soul is Yehida, which is, one gets to experience God directly. Now, unlike in Buddhism, where rebirth is perpetuated by karma, the Kabbalists believed Gilgal is ultimately controlled by God. So for sinners, reincarnation can take place as punishment, while for the virtuous, it's an opportunity to fulfill a religious duty. And as in Buddhism, the Kabbalists believe a soul can return in an animal body, usually as God's punishment for sin in their past life. However, God could also cause a person's soul to return as a plant or even a rock. And this is because all things are considered to have elementary life soul or nefesh. Without it, they would simply cease to exist. Furthermore, Jewish mystics may believe in the possibility of multiple souls inhabiting one body, and this is called ibur, or impregnation. In one kind of ibur, a virtuous soul can enter the body of a living person, which can explain a sudden spiritual awakening. Equally, the soul of a wicked person might also try to possess a living individual to get a chance at another lifetime. And this kind of possessing spirit is called dibuk. A highly spiritual or virtuous person can be recognized as the gilgal, a returning of a great teacher from the past. And this is also very common in Tibetan Buddhism, where we have the word Rinpoche, meaning precious one, or the word Tulku, referring to a reincarnated lama or holder of a lineage. And basically, these are lamas who took the bodhisattva vow to keep returning to this material domain until all sentient beings become free from the suffering of cyclic existence. Dalai Lama is an example of a Tulku. Furthermore, Moses, for example, is sometimes considered to have been a gilgal of Abel. Gilgals are also connected to the spiritual process of tikkun, which means rectification or repair. So the famous Kabbalist Isaac Luria taught that all souls were originally in Adam. And when Adam fell, his soul broke into all the souls that exist today. And those souls are trying to get back together and repair the flaws that have emerged in creation. Now on to Christian views. Well, the dominant type of Christianity during Roman Empire emphasized resurrection of the physical body. Gnostic Christians often held that the soul was bound into a cycle of death and rebirth in the physical world, which would continue until they acquired a special spiritual knowledge, or gnosis, which would enable them to escape. So early Christianity was much more diverse than many people realize. So the early church father, Origen, for instance, believed that human souls originated as pre-existent spirits. So according to him, when Lucifer rebelled, the good spirits who remained loyal to God became angels, the rebellious spirits became demons, and the spirits in the middle became the souls of human beings. So we're unsure if Origen actually believed in reincarnation, but his ideas about the pre-existence of souls is certainly consistent with the possibility of rebirth. The possibility of reincarnation is also explicitly suggested in a Gnostic text, Apocryphon of John. And Gnostic Christian Carpocratians believed soul reincarnated until it experienced all things, both good and bad. Now, while Buddhism teaches rebirth occurs on account of karma, and the Kabbalah that it occurs at the direction of God, Gnostic Christians saw it as being forced on the soul by the archons, or evil powers that control the material world. So in Gnostic mythology, material world is created by a being called the Demiurge, who is at best simply flawed and at worst actively malevolent. So the archons basically serve the Demiurge, who wants to keep human souls trapped in material bodies. And thus, some Gnostic Christians apparently taught secret techniques for bypassing the archons after death, so the soul could finally attain rest in the pleroma, or divine fullness. Medieval Christian sect Cathars believed that until a soul was purified, it reincarnates on earth, and that it can even be reborn as an animal. And they have been influenced by the dualistic religion called Manichaeism, which was a fusion of Gnostic Christianity, Buddhism, and Zoroastrianism. Finally, author Philip K. Dick, who self-identified as a Gnostic Christian, speculated that ancient Christians had learned to project their souls through space and time. And he experienced being inhabited by another soul named Thomas, who, among other things, enabled Dick to suddenly understand Koine Greek, which is the language of the New Testament. Now, Dick's experience relates directly to the Kabbalistic idea of ibur, or impregnation, which we talked about earlier. So where are we going next? And can we ourselves have an impact on that upcoming journey? Consider these presented views and decide for yourself. We know from psychology and common sense that our decisions and the way we conduct ourselves impact both our present and our future directly. So why not consider that they can have an impact when the consciousness leaves the body? And if this is so, why not protect ourselves by living a wholesome and responsible life, adjusting our efforts for a happy existence to include as many other sentient beings as possible? We encourage you to consider these different points of view in the light of your own experiences and relationship to the spirit. I want to thank Daniel Hanley for his contribution to this lecture. And again, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.